right, welcome to Talk of Fame. Christian is joining us today. Christian was the winner of the 2024 Las Vegas Open. Christian, tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with the game.
Thank you for having me, Carl. Yeah, it still sounds weird as the calling me the LVO champion, but I appreciate it. But yeah, I've been playing this game for the past 4 years, I would say, ever since 2019, 2020. I really got into it about a year ago, and that was when I started playing really frequently. And then competitively, I've been playing since August of last year, playing in tournaments and such. And yeah, it's been a blast. It's a really fun game.
Awesome. Let's see. What about how did you start out faction wise and where are you at now?
Yeah, so the first faction I got, like most people, was the Stark versus Lannister starter set. I love the Starks, and I thought that was the best buy-in. So I got that. Started with Starks, was having fun, but I got into them post 1.6 when they were really bad, and so they weren't that fun to play for me. And so after that, I the next thing for me was Night's Watch because I'm an aggressive player and I love Jon Snow. I love Ghost. So that was what I got into after that and had a lot of fun with them. But they were just kind of not boring, I would say, but I just wanted something kind of more unique. And so pivoted to Greyjoys because I thought, oh, the pillage mechanic, that's something no one else really has. They're infantry only, pretty cool. So I got into them, and originally they were kind of a grind. They were kind of a when they were released, they were a grind based faction. So they weren't that fun for me to play, but I kept them. And then last update, they made them crazy good with some of the changes, and that's when I really picked them up. So I hate to say it, I'm kind of a meta chaser, but it's fun. It's fun. So yeah.
Let's continue on with this series, Talk of Fame. In reference to the Walk of Fame, the famous Hollywood stars over there in the LA area in Southern California. Um, and that is in reference to our top 10 segment. So today we have the top 5 best and worst tactic cards. This is a refresher video, a throwback to about 4 years ago when we used to do content here on this channel. And we're going to update it. So, how are you feeling about this episode?
I'm very excited. I think tactics cards, you and I and everyone who's really into the game knows that tactics cards are probably they could be the most important part of the game. I think games are won or lost by good or bad tactics cards and how you play them. So I think it's going to be a very informational, but mostly entertaining. But I think it'll be a very entertaining video, at least for me. So
Let's get right in. We're going to start with the top 5 worst tactic cards first. Um, let's start off with some honorable mentions of the voters. So, in case those of you watching or listening don't know, I sent out a Google form for anyone and everyone to vote on these top 5 best and worst, and we have a couple other categories that we voted on. We'll talk about later. And so I got responses from all over the world. I think I have 8 different countries. Um, I have not the most significant numbers of votes, but it's interesting to say the least. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna rattle off the voters' choice, and then we'll ask Christian what his top 5 is, and we'll get some info. So first up, the honorable mentions for the worst tactic cards in the game. I'm gonna name all 3 of my honorable mentions, and then how about you pick, or we'll just talk about them. So the 3 honorable mentions that almost made it are Sadistic Games, Superior Positioning, and Unstoppable Advance. So tell me what you think about those 3 as honorable mentions. Do any of them deserve to be in the top 5?
yeah, so we'll get to superior positioning when we get to my list.
Yeah.
Unstoppable Advance though does surprise me a little bit. I think it's a very situational card, but targs are always charging. So having reroll charge distance being able to reroll charge distance dice and it's not tied to a zone like Starks is seems pretty decent. But I'm not a target player, so I won't judge. But I would say that's a decent card in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. I think I agree with you wholeheartedly there. I think Sadistic Games is not the best card, and I think it's perfectly in the spot of honorable mention here. Um, Superior positioning should be higher, and yeah, Supplemental Advance just seems like one of those cards where it's like you can toss, but it's also like really good when it goes off, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'll
Um,
always take being able to reroll charge distance dice.
yeah, well, that is my number one thing because those single die rolls is my bane of my existence. So, would you add any honorable mentions that are not in your top five that just didn't make the cut?
One of the cards this pains me to say because Euron is one of my favorite characters, and one of the cards that I think could be really good but is really bad is Mind Games. So Mind Games is starter friendly turn. You target 2 tactic zones. Excuse me, you target 1 tactic zone. The next time that zone is claimed this round, after resolving that zone's effect, the player who did not claim that zone may immediately activate that zone's effect. So it's like I said, I think it's very situational, but with the starter friendly turn really hurts it. Because you can't, oh, your opponent's going first, they're probably going to take swords. You can't go, oh, start of any turn mind games. And like I said, it can be a good card, but the fact that it's start of friendly turn only really hurts it. If it was start of any turn, I think it would be a pretty good card, and it's very cool. I think it's a very cool card, very unique, but I think it's a very bad card. I think it.
Okay, drum roll. Number five, voter's choice for worst tactic card is the quest cards. So quest cards, specifically mentioned in these votes, the Lannister, Stark, and Targ quest cards, mostly Lannister, which is the Lannister pays his debts. Um, so let's take a look at a Lannister pays his debts. It's going to be similar to all quest cards, where you start of an turn, you pop it onto a unit, and then you fulfill the quest card almost always when a friendly unit dies. In the case of free folk, it's when that unit dies. In the case of neutrals, it's when an enemy unit dies. But for the Lannister pays his debts, it is any friendly unit, infantry or cav. You place the order token on the card, and then it becomes active, and the attacks gain vicious. And then while you control crowns, +1 to hit. So for me, I think what made this such a common vote is that vicious isn't that strong right now. Period. Because of all the all the positive morale adjustment and auto panic test shenanigans out there. Also, the secondary bonus is conditional on controlling crowns. So I totally understand this. It has always been, even before it got changed, it was it's always been thought of as one of the worst cards, and I guess it still is. So what do you think?
I would agree. I think I think vicious. The problem is in the last two updates we've seen morale increasingly become better. It seems like the average morale for most factions is hovering around 5 or 6. So even with vicious, most of the time they're still passing most of the time. So I just don't think it's if one of your units gets murked and you're hoping that this card is going to turn things around for you, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just I wouldn't count on it. I don't think it's very good. So I think it's and I've never played Lannisters, but I have noticed a lot of Lannister players ditch it when they're fishing with Tyrion. So I would agree. I think it's a really bad card.
Interesting. That would be like a nice tally of like what cards do you ditch the most with Tyrion. I think
Yeah,
this would be number one for
I would
sure.
agree 100%.
What is your number five?
Okay, so I'll just preface this. These are in no particular order. I think good cards you can rank on a 1 to 10 scale, but bad cards are just bad in my opinion. But
Okay.
so just prefacing that. But anyway, so my number 5 is Belwas's Count the Cuts.
Okay.
This card, I think there's I think there's a reason Belwas never sees play. It's not just the fact that he's an infantry commander in a cav dominated faction. It's a he's got horrible cards, and in my opinion, this is a really awful card. It's the trigger after an enemy completes a melee attack, target the defender, attach this card to them until they destroy an enemy with an attack. When this card is removed, gain 1 victory point. Now, this is kind of confusing for me. I've noticed the targets have a lot of cards that Adravat is one of them, where if you fulfill a condition, you get a victory point, which is unique to the faction. I don't think any other factions have that. And then
I think you're right.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting to me, and I'd have to play with that. And then continuing, while attached, this unit cannot restore wounds, but it gains +2 to morale test rolls, and its melee attack always rolls its highest attack die value. Your opponent gains 1 victory point when it is destroyed. So for me, the problem I have with this is the triggers after an enemy completes a melee attack, and with how low Targaryen armor is, any unit that gets a decent attack off you is probably going to take you down to half health, especially if you're running screamers. I mean, the most offensive units are Unsullied, and they're 4 armor. So any decent attack from Tully Cav, Silence Man, any of the heavy hitters, you're probably going to be down to half health, right? And then playing this card and preventing you from restoring wounds is really bad. You're basically poisoning yourself, and then what do you get for that? Well, you gain +2 to morale test rolls. Okay, I mean Targaryen morale is already really high, so that seems really useful. I mean useless. And its melee attacks always roll its highest attack die value. It's okay, but you could just, I mean, why not just be able to heal back up to full ranks, and then you're on your highest attack die value anyways. So this card just seems like a good way to get yourself killed. I don't. I like I said, I've never played Targ, so I'm sure there's a lot of Targ players out there that have gotten victory points off this, but it just seems like a horrible card. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think a common theme, and this is not even the first one we've mentioned already, but the common theme, maybe it is the the cards that are considered the worst can only really like be utilized in very, very like situational
Yes.
uses, right?
Yeah.
The best cards are able to be utilized to best effect at more frequent times throughout the game.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so let's continue on to number 4. Worst card in the game from the People's Choice. We have, drum roll, Remorseless Examples. All right, Remorseless Examples is seen in the Bolton base deck. It is seen in the Queen of Marine, and it is seen in the Weeper, I believe. I'm not sure if it's
Yes,
anywhere
I
else
believe
in
that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's right.
I don't think it's anywhere else in the game that I can remember off the top of my head. Um, so let's take a look at the card and then get your thoughts on it. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what the card does? Or do you have that in front of you?
I do have it in front of me. Yeah. So
Okay.
remorseless examples. After a friendly unit completes a melee attack, if this attack destroyed an enemy rank, target one other enemy in long range of that enemy. They become panicked. So that's the first. That's the first condition. It has two separate. Yes, it has two separate triggers that you can play it on. So we'll look at the first one. Um, I mean, it's okay, I guess.
it's
It seems
it's
like
terrible.
I
I mean,
mean,
I'm sorry, but it's
yeah,
like
yeah, it's pretty bad.
you
Yeah,
have to
yeah, you're
kill a
right.
rank to make one other unit in long range panicked. Like
Especially with how many other ways to
what?
get out panic tokens Boltons
Why can't
have.
I just hit you and then make someone panic? Why do I have to take out a rank? Like that's just
Yeah.
it's so that's already a big red flag right there. Like
Yeah, and that's the easiest part of it to trigger. And then continuing, if this attack destroyed the enemy, which is tough because Boltons don't really have a lot of heavy hitters right now. Also place one corpse pile with the following keywords anywhere fully in short range and not overlapping other terrain. Hindering and Grim Reminder. Enemies suffer -1 on morale test rolls and +1 when from failing panic tests while in short range. So you're the Bolton player, so why don't you explain how bad this is?
first of all, I have not explored the Bolton faction yet because when they were released, I cried at how bad they were. So I've
I understand.
I have stuck with neutrals, but um, so terrain. So what's I guess okay. What's bad about this? I guess is the trigger, right? Taking out a unit. Um, I don't know. It's you have to have the card at the perfect right time and at the perfect right place on the battlefield to make the best use of it, which is going back to our theme, extremely situational. Um,
Especially for Boltons, because what's their heavy hitter? Flademan rolling 6 dice. I mean, come on. They don't really have a ton of ways to finish on units,
yeah,
so it makes it even harder.
they can maybe bastard girl someone to death. They can also
Yeah, that's
they can
true.
also bring neutrals now,
Oh,
but
that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but
Still bad though.
what also sucks, yeah, what also sucks is that the hindering part of the terrain piece works both ways.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
so this new terrain piece that is like, "Hey, I get a prize for killing you," is gonna mess you up too, right? It's like,
Yeah,
why
exactly.
even do it? I mean, so back to the situational thing, maybe what this card does, let's try to make good use of it, right? Maybe what this card does, if you have it at the right time, is allow you to not fear the retaliation charge as much because you can kill a unit, pop down the new Grim Reminders corpse pile, and then the enemy will have to go through hindering now to counter assault you, which is really good for against something like Sentinel, because Sentinel has the same trigger as this. So
Right, and this would
uh
become
so
first.
so Sentinel beats out, Search Fourth. So the Sentinel is a gotcha once you hit somebody or kill someone before you can reposition. Well, this helps a little bit. This can say, okay, well, I'm going to plop down hindering in between the Sentinel and my unit that just did the kill. Grim Reminders is just kind of icing on the cake for the Bolton faction and Panicless period because it works one way. So maybe so this is also part of like why it's bad but could be good kind of thing is um in that moment of placing down that corpse pile to help out with the counter charge, um, would be best against something like Horrific Visage, which would be like the blackguards, but like the blackguards aren't going to kill anybody, right?
No, yeah,
So
you're
like,
not.
what are you doing here?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe
I mean,
maybe Ramsey Commander finishes someone off in cutthroats, and this will help cutthroats stay alive, right? Because
but Carl, the fact that we have to think about it this much to get play out of it, I mean, just proves it's an awful card. I mean, assault orders, you just, oh, I'll just charge. I mean, this is just, you shouldn't have to be playing chess to figure out how a base deck card works. So it's just a, I mean, I agree. I agree. I think any card in the game, you could find some combo to make it work. But
true, true.
it's just a bad card, and it's very situational. And
Let's go for your personal choice number four.
cool. So for me, we won't have to go far. I have another Bolton base deck, base card deck, base card in the deck. Excuse me. That is harsh punishments.
Okay.
This is actually going to be, this might be controversial. I'm sure a lot of Bolton players like this. So start of any turn, you attach this to one friendly combat unit until the end of the game. They become panicked. While this card is attached, their unit's melee attacks roll their highest attack value and gain sundering. So that's pretty decent. But the problem is each time this unit fails a panic check, they suffer one wound. So I don't know. I think sundering and highest attack value are good. I don't think do Boltons have any base units that have sundering? I don't think they do, right?
I believe Sour Allen can give someone
Well, I mean,
sundering.
there's attachments, right? But there's no, yeah,
Yeah.
they don't have any units. So sundering and highest attack value is good, but you're trading, but the trade off is you take plus one wound for from suffering panic checks. And given that Boltons have the worst morale in the game, I would say I don't think that's worth it, especially if you consider other cards like Battle Endurance. I mean, it's just I think it's a bad card, but
Yeah.
that might be controversial. What's your opinion on that?
Um, yeah, I feel like this is the second Bolton card in a row, obviously, but um it it just kind of gets back to my sadness of the faction release and how like they have like kind of the right idea, but they were scared to make it too strong. Maybe,
Yeah, exactly.
so this was also I'll mention this was also voted as it got a few votes as worst card. It just didn't make the honorable mention list or the top five, but Harsh Punishments is up there. So
Yeah, I
um
don't think, like I said, I don't think it's the worst, one of the worst. I don't think it's the worst card in the game. I think it does have play. If you got to kill a unit, you play this card. But I just think it's one of those cards that I don't think it needs the plus one wound. I think it could just be how it is without that. I think it would be fine, especially compared to Battle Endurance and some of the other cards that give your units benefits.
all right, let's move on to number three worst card. Voted on for the people's choice is Sustained Assault. And
I
read
have it
it.
right here.
All right, go ahead.
When a friendly unit is performing, this is the Baratheon version. When a friendly unit is performing a melee attack before one attack dice, if this unit began the turn engaged with a defender, it rolls its highest attack die value and may reroll any attack dice. Now, what's interesting is this is different from the so for the Baratheon version, you have to begin. Do you have to begin the turn engaged to play both of these to play this card? You have to, right?
No. So that's one of the funniest parts about the card
Uh-huh.
is you can trigger the card and waste it if you didn't start the turn engaged, right? So like the trigger is just performing a melee attack before
Right. You can,
dice.
but you don't get the effects, right?
The sustained assault card for Baratheon, both highest die and rerolls are conditioned for starting the turn engaged,
Got
which
it.
is sad. And that's why it sucks.
Yeah, I would agree. It's interesting though that it's different than the Greyjoy version because the Greyjoy version is you don't need to begin the turn engaged to get the rerolls if it targets Vic or Newt. So that can actually be pretty decent if you're it's I've charged a lot of times I've charged over to Bog and played that and got the rerolls. But with Finger Dance, I think this card this card's gonna be ditched a lot. So yeah, I would say if you began the turn engaged, which Baratheons do a lot, right? They're not doing charging. They're not the charging faction. Yeah, it's helpful, but still pretty situational. I don't see why it needs to be engaged to have those effects. I think it could just be highest attack die and reroll and be fine. So I think what it is it's just developers adding unnecessary limitations. I think
Yeah,
I don't think it's necessary. I
and
don't think
here's
it's
why,
necessary at all.
because if you're not starting the turn engaged, you're probably charging in at full ranks and getting your rerolls from charging. So
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
so
It's
people
usually,
know already that this card is going to work its best while starting the turn engaged. Why put the limitation there? Because
yeah.
if you remove that limitation, then this might help you out going over hindering terrain or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
so yep, top worst card. Understood.
Yep. Sucks.
All right, Miss Senior Christian, what do you have for your number 3?
Superior positioning. I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me. It's a really bad card. I think a lot of people. I mean, what I have noticed is it's disorderly charges suck. I will agree. I hate ruling disorderly charges, but the fact that you already have a native chance to roll a disorderly charge, all it does is add +2 to that. Plus, it adds
That makes
plus
it a 50-50, right?
it
Instead
makes
of
it a 50
yeah.
50 from a 1 and 6. So it's not that good. All it does is slightly increase the chances of rolling disorderly. And if they do suffer disorderly, they become vulnerable. So okay, I think a weakened token would be much better. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the point of vulnerable is. Maybe set for charge. I don't know why the developers intended that. But yeah, and also it seems to never go off. I can't. I've seen so many times that that card has been played and it never works. So just a bad card. But what are your thoughts on it?
I'd be willing to wager over time if we were to track every single time the card's played, probably half the time it works, which is a pretty terrible stat for a card.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm jokingly saying that because it's
Well,
a
I would
3 or
say
it's a 3 or
Oh, sorry.
less.
Go ahead.
It's a
Yeah.
3 or less, so 50-50 shot. But what makes it even worse
But it's
is
one thing though I will say about that is it's less than 50-50 because of all of the effects that auto charge. So it does nothing against rush of aggression. It does nothing against reckless heroism. So there's a lot of abilities that just negate that. But yeah, go ahead.
that's a fantastic point. So
Yeah,
it's probably, and those are very common, so it's probably way less than 50.
yeah,
Um but what I was going to say is what's even worse is you take your less than 50% chance of this card working and then you get a vulnerable token. I
yeah,
don't know. It's
yeah.
like, I mean,
Salt in the wound.
the disorderly like stops cards, but even if they do become disorderly, like there's so many like reroll effects baked into units and attachments and like
Yes,
and abilities that
martial
are gonna
training. Yeah,
abilities that are gonna punch you in the face anyways. Like
yeah.
you don't want them to get to you. That's what you don't want. Like, I don't know. It's it's a really terrible card.
That's a really terrible card. And also another thing is like let's say your opponent needs a 4 up charge, right? The card does nothing again because I guess oh no, I guess if they fail they become vulnerable. That's the benefit of it. I think looking at how we can improve it, I think if it was if you got rid of the tokens and maybe they suffered -1 movement this turn, that would like unexpected exhaustion. I think that would actually be pretty decent. Or like we said earlier, just give them a weakened token. But it's just a really bad card as it currently is.
Yeah, I think I would turn it into a Oberyn NCU effect. Because you have superior positioning, you can see them coming, you're ready for them, and you're gonna smack them in the face if they charge you. Like,
Mhm.
I would do the auto hits if they get to you. I don't know, and then the vulnerable might make sense. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but it's 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 a pretty bad card.
yeah. Everyone seems to hate it, and I
I
love it.
don't I don't really have advice for turning this card into something good. You just besides battle plan, which is our go-to,
Yep.
but like you actually utilizing the card. I don't. I mean, you just go for it. It's just one of those effects in the game that's just like, well, I hope it works, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It's completely luck based.
I hope it messes up your charge, right? Um. Anyways, it's pretty bad. All right, so that was your number three, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, moving on to number two, worst card, People's Choice is, and this is the most surprising one, Swift Reposition.
What?
Yeah, yes.
Interesting. Okay.
And again, I'll reiterate that number two for worst card through number five for worst card all got the same votes. Um, so they're all tied for second place. So you could say Swift Reposition is fifth. I don't know what people are thinking with these votes. Swift Reposition is one of my favorite cards. So I don't really I can't really comment on why the card is bad. Do you have any thoughts on why this card got so many votes?
Um, I don't
First,
know. I mean, so I don't want to judge. I'm wondering if maybe some newer players are, and I will say it's not like an amazing card. It's not it's not assault orders, but it is a. But I'm wondering if some of the newer players just look at this as, oh, a 2-inch shift. What is that like? But and I agree. I mean, when I first saw this card too, when I first started playing, I was like, oh, this isn't that great. But I'm wondering
okay,
if that's what it's from. But what is your opinion on why this card got
okay.
voted?
All right. I think first of all, in case you don't know, Swift Reposition is a start of any turn,
Start of any turn. Yeah.
which is a fantastic trigger, first of all. You're gonna make a 2-inch shift, right? For the Stark version, I don't know if
Yes,
there's
for the
any.
Stark version, if you control horses,
Is
they
that the
can
same?
perform a 3-inch maneuver instead.
Yeah, I think it's the same for
I believe it's the
Targs.
same for Targs as well, yeah.
It is the same for Targs.
Yep.
Do I'm trying to remember. Do Free Folk have it? No, they don't.
No, they don't.
Okay. I'm not sure who else has it, if anyone else does, but it's the same for Stark and Targs. You get to make a 3-inch maneuver instead if you have the horses. And what one funny part about it, I think, is somebody pointed out, you cannot there is no May, right? So like if there is something that triggers off of you doing a maneuver, if you control horses, you have to do a maneuver. Like you can't
Oh, so what's that card where after you perform a maneuver, you get charged?
um yeah, oh, ride
That's a
them down. Yeah.
ride them down, so there
There's
you
ride
go.
them
Yeah.
down, and then there's I think there's a Baratheon version, but there's also
Overwatch.
Overwatch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
okay.
Overwatch. So people are like, I'm just gonna take the shift instead. It's like, nope, you can't do that. Um,
I didn't think about that, but I still think it's a good card. I still think
I think it's a fantastic card.
yeah, I love this card. I mean, I played a game against, uh, I'll shout him out, Blaze. I love that guy. He's so much fun to play with. And in our game, we I think I was playing Rob Commander, and I drew Swift Reposition, and I had Sansa, so I took horses, maneuvered my Tully Cav up, played Swift Reposition. Sansa got it back, played it again, and was able to charge round one. That's a great combo. I love Sansa with Swift Reposition, and the start of any turn, so you can pull yourself out of a range shot if you want to.
Yeah,
You
it can
can
be defensive or offensive.
yeah, I love this card. I'm very surprised that I wasn't the old. I mean, you have to tell me, you have to correct me, but wasn't the old Swift reposition just a free maneuver start of any turn?
I think so.
Yeah, so it's definitely been nerfed since the days of Stark
Yeah,
Terror,
it needed to be nerfed though.
but it's still a good card. I mean, I wish I had this in my base deck playing Victorian. So I think it's a
Yeah.
good card.
So I guess some pointers about the card is I would just say like honing in your positioning skills, because a lot of times people will intentionally position like just out of range, just barely, like, maybe use this on a ranged unit and get some use out of it, because they'll be like, oh, I'm 12.1 14 I'm 14.1 inches away from your long range, so I know I can't get hit. Then you're like, well,
Yeah,
swift
yeah.
reposition, sucker. Right? Like,
Yeah, and
so
this along with Arya, is it can really
yeah,
make your opponents. I mean, if you're running Berserkers with a 6-inch movement with Great John, and you've got this card in your hand and you have Arya, that's an auto. What is that? If you got horses, that's auto 6+3 9 plus. It's like an auto 21-inch charge. I mean,
it's crazy.
it's a crazy card. I mean, and I think if you're running an aggressive commander like Great John, I think it's one of those cards you gotta watch out for, because I think it can get you. So that
Yeah.
surprised me. That does surprise me. I'm not saying they're wrong. I mean,
You're like, what?
it's fair
Yeah.
play. I mean, it's fair, I guess, but I will say that's surprised me. Wow.
It is. I'll just make a final note on that card because I do love it. I pointed this out at one point in time. You can do your aria, and in response to the aria, the opponent might take horses. Well, if you have Varus, then you'll get an extra 3-inch shift. Okay, so the horses might protect one unit, but not the one that you're actually going for, which is across the board. So you do your aria maneuver, get your Varus, get your swift reposition, and then your auto 6 Great John charge, and you can just fly.
Yeah, yeah, it completely
So,
negates the maneuver. So yeah, it's a good card. I like it. I like Swift Repo a lot.
alrighty. What do you have for number 2, sir?
Okay, so this was a card I wanted to. For this card, I didn't even know it existed. I wanted to just picking this card. I wanted to pick one card that I had never seen played before, and this
Okay.
card I can see why. He's on Andrew Estamart, for the Baratheons. He's on Stannis side, and
Okay.
this card is called Reckless Fury. So when a
Okay.
friendly unit is performing a melee attack, before I didn't know this card existed. Before rolling attack dice, this attack gains vicious and rerolls and rolls its highest attack die value. So right there, okay, like
That's insight.
that's insight, and insight sucks. So whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, but it
Yeah.
keeps going. So after completing this attack, the attack suffers 2 wounds,
Yeah.
minus
Not,
1 wound for each of its destroyed rank. So it's awful. I mean, why have that secondary effect? I mean, if it had vicious and high attack value, it would still be bad. It would be sustained assault level. It'd be worse than sustained assault because you don't get your rerolls. But the fact that you suffer 2 wounds, minus 1 wound for each of its destroyed rank is just it's like a throwback from post 1.6 Starks. I mean, it's just a horrible card. What do you think about it?
um. Yeah. I know that your cards are not in any order, so but it's pretty bad. Like a worse version of Insight is pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Like,
Yeah,
I can see that the reason why you use it is you don't have your highest dice, so the -1 wound for each destroyed rank kicks in, but you're still taking a wound probably for using Insight. It's terrible. I mean, I don't know. Vicious, as we mentioned earlier, is not the best keyword in the game right now. Um, so yeah, I can totally see why you picked this card.
yep. I think it's a terrible card.
Any advice of maybe utilizing it?
No, I think, I think, yeah, I can't see. What's interesting is Andrew. He actually has his other cards. I believe are Rush of Aggression and Assault Orders. So he actually
Yeah.
has 2 other pretty decent cards. So if you're running him, I would say Justin Massey and just ditch that card, because if you are gonna have a before rolling melee attack dice, I would play Sustain Assault. I don't think Sustain Assault's great, but at least you get rerolls. Playing Vicious to hopefully deal D3 wounds is not good, and then you're taking 2 wounds back. So I mean, the odds of failing a panic check, the enemy's going to take 2 wounds, and then you're taking 2 wounds, so it's a wash. And it's just
Yeah.
so I would say if you're running him and you want to run aggressive Stannis, just master these cards for the assault orders or the rush of aggressions.
One thing I will note is it doesn't specify type of unit, so this could be used on Cav, which is nice because usually Cav dice drop significantly after losing a rank. But besides that, yeah, I don't like it. I think it's terrible. And that's a really good choice for you. So,
Thank you.
Christian's number 2. All right, now what we've all been waiting for. I think everyone knows what this is going to be. We have the People's Choice Award for the worst card in the game right now is
Field
Field
control, I bet. Yep,
Field
yep.
Control.
I knew it. Yeah,
Field
yeah.
Control. Let's talk a bit about Field Control real quick. All right, to rattle off what Field Control does, when an NCU claims the maneuver zone, if the NCU is friendly, you can replace that effect with the unit performs a maneuver or retreat with +1 speed, and any enemy it disengages from becomes weakened. So +1 speed and weakened if you retreat on the enemy.
Okay.
If the NCU was an enemy, though, after resolving that zone effect, one friendly combat unit performs a 3-inch shift. So, why is this card so bad, Christian?
Yeah, I think so. It is a bad card. I think it's so let's break it down. So Targs do want to take horses, right? Targs want horses. That's probably their most valuable zone after swords. So if you take it, being able to perform a maneuver or retreat with +1 movement is pretty decent. I would say you can make your screamers or Drogo go 7. That's okay. I would say. And then if the enemy NCU takes the zone, one friendly combat unit forms a 3-inch shift. So it's basically like if they take the zone, you get swift reposition. It's pretty bad. I would say. I think
Ye-
also another part of it is it's tough for me to explain because I've never played Targs, but another part of it is field control used to be very good. It used to be probably one of the better cards in the game,
Oh, the
and
denial
so
one. Yeah.
yeah, and so for it to go from that to this is pretty heartbreaking. So
Yeah, I can see that.
Um, but
So
yeah, what? Yeah, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
I think to start off is to keep in theme with why cards are bad, and that is um, how often can you use it, right? So claiming the horse zone. So just to throw out an example, you start a round, you don't have this card, and you're like, okay, nothing immediate at that moment. Like you don't need to take swords, for example, um, or the horse zone isn't going to get you out of line of sight. So I'm gonna take letters. You pull this card, right? Like I don't know. I'm saying this. I'm saying this the opposite way. Sorry. So
No, you're right. Yeah, you draw
let's
the card, and then they
let's
go.
well, I'm
Then they
saying
take
let's say
horses.
you take letters in the midst of the fighting of the
Okay.
game. The horse zone, the sword zone, and the bag zone are probably already taken, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because those three are the most valuable. I think horse is probably the most valuable in my opinion, but I love positioning and moving around. But in the once the fighting begins, even though cards are powerful, those three are like probably taken first. So then you draw the card. Well, the horse the maneuver zone is already taken, right? So
Yeah.
what are you gonna do at the end of the round? Are
You're
you
gonna
gonna are you
ditch it.
are you gonna hold on to this card?
Yeah.
Like
It's
absolutely not. Like definitely not, right?
yeah. I think like we talked about. It's a bad card. I still think it has some value. A 3-inch shift is a 3-inch shift, but it doesn't. I think. So how would you improve this card? I think I have a very interesting idea of how I would change this card. How would you fix this card? Because
Fixed.
it
I
does
mean,
need to be fixed. It does. It's one of the Targ deck in general needs to be looked at. We've listed 3 Targ cards already. So, and this is one of them. So how would you change this card?
I would probably fix the trigger to when an NCU claims any zone. And then pretty much keep it the same. Yeah. Yeah. That way, it's very useful all the time. And it becomes a replace effect for something like crowns. And you can respond to the enemy unit taking any zone with a shift, which would then line you up. Like, you're not just responding to them positioning.
Yeah.
You're saying, oh, you took tactic cards or something because you think that you're out of danger, and then you know what I mean? And then I play this card and I get my shift, and now I'm about to charge you in the face because you thought you were fine. You take cards or something like that, and I'm like, hello. So yeah, I think I'll just simply change from taking maneuver, claims maneuver to claims any zone. That's probably what I would do.
Okay, so here's my idea. Okay, here's my idea. My idea would be to just make it a card version of Lady Val. So you take any zone and replace it with the effect of one combat unit performs a maneuver or retreat with +1 movement. And it
Yeah.
would just
All
be
right.
it would just
We're
and
we're on the same page.
yeah, yeah. So basically similar to your idea. I think if they did that, it would be a very good card because you could
Yeah.
play that. I mean, Targus could play that anytime during the round, but
If they
the way
change
it
it to
is,
any
yeah.
if they change it to any zone, I'd probably take out the +1 speed and weaken thing because it would not be necessary. That'd make the card a little too strong.
Mhm.
But just taking a maneuver or retreat like a Lady Val, like you said, is enough, I think, to make it useful all the time. And responding to an enemy taking a zone with a 3-inch shift is situational, but makes up for it, like, just adds more utility. But
Yeah, yeah,
the thing about the base effect should be able to be used more often, and it's what makes the card so terrible is, like, the stars have to align, and that's
yes. It's very
once it
situational.
once again our main theme of how white cards are bad. And this is is it the fourth target card?
It's the I third or fourth. Yeah, it's yeah. Oh yes, because Swift Repo, but Swift Repo is whatever. But
Yeah,
definitely the third. Definitely the third.
I think people voted Swift Repo. So this is a little callback to our last was it number 2? I think
Mhm.
people voted Swift Repo in the Targ deck because you're playing Cav and don't need it anyways.
Oh, I can see that. Yes, yeah,
You
I can see
know,
that. That makes
so
sense. It makes more sense.
that might be why it's like, why do I need this card? I'm flying around the board anyways, so
Yes.
maybe that's why. So then if you have an army like that, you're like, all right, well, then it becomes a situational card when it's needed. So
Yes, I would agree with that.
we have field control, swift repo, a supple advance, and blood of the dragon. All were voted from
And
the
count the
target,
cuts, but that's Belwas.
and count the cuts. So 5.
Yeah, poor Belwas.
I'm not sure if they have sustained assault or anything else. But field control takes the cake as number 1 worst card in the game for voters' choice. How about yourself?
Okay. I want to do something a little bit different. And this is also close to home. It's Raider Bravery, one of Osh's commander cards.
Okay,
So when a friendly unit passes a morale test, attach this card to that unit until it fails a morale test. While attached, when this unit attacks, if it has full ranks against +1 attack die, otherwise it is treated as having +1 rank for attack dice. So again, it's a situational trigger passing a morale test. Now Asha has ways to 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 help that. She has Warcry, so she can play this off her own Warcry.
sure.
But you have to pass the morale check first to play it. Okay, so not horrible right now because Greyjoys with the universal pillage buff, Greyjoys can get pretty high morale, pretty decent morale, but it's still situational. And the effect is it's the same thing as having boldness and courage.
Yeah,
It's okay. It's okay. One thing is we already have. I mean, we have 1 point Baylor, so we already has boldness and courage. So we have that, and then with pillage with +1 attack die, you kind of already have built in boldness and courage. So it just kind of gets lost, and then to make it worse, it comes off when you fail a morale check. So you have a very conditional trigger for a not that great effect, and then it falls off if you fail a morale check. So it hurts because I love Asha. She's my favorite character in the books, and she won me my hardest game at LVO. So against Joe. So it hurts because I love Asha, but I think it's a bad card. I think it's one of the cards that needs to get looked at. But what do you think about it?
yeah. I think you spelled it out for us. I mean, I didn't look at this card as one of the worst. So, but now that I'm looking at it, it makes sense why you'd pick it. Um, yeah. Boldness and courage is good. So there's that. Yeah. Let's see. I think maybe it can be useless or useful, sorry. I think it could be useful maybe for like bowmen or something. Like you can get them to pass
That's an 8 up morale check.
well, no, you can put Greyjoys have a variety of ways, right, to make
Yeah.
that easy to pass.
Yeah,
Um
no, totally. I don't like I said, I don't think it's horrible. I mean, if you put this on Silenceman and they're fully pillaged, you're gonna be throwing 9 dice, I believe. 9 dice with double sundering. So yeah, I mean, if you can get this card out, if it stays on, you're happy. But I just think I think the trigger as well as the if this card stayed on, yes, it would be a very good card. But the fact that it falls off, I just think is
okay.
I think the fact that the card falls off is a little unnecessary, especially when you
Yeah.
consider stuff like battle endurance. And also, I just realized this now. The card falls if you fail a morale check, not a panic check. So if you put it on Asha
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
fail a war cry, the card comes off. So
Yeah.
I think
That's pretty funny.
yeah, I don't think it needs that the falling off ability
I
being
do.
part of
And the
text.
reason why I say that is I'm tired of Greyjoys and their extra attack dice and their extra morale. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I would not put this in my top 5, but I can see why you do.
Yeah,
Um, I think I think the boldness and courage. I think 2 copies of boldness and courage where you want it, not at any time, obviously, but like that is just makes like Greyjoys a little obscene. So, um, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. It's really hard to make Greyjoys fail morale
you're
tests.
just a hater. You're just a bitter hater. You don't like my Greyjoys. No, but
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I do think, like I said, I think if you yeah, if I think it is a strong card. If it's definitely a strong card. If you can get it on and it's not falling off, yeah, it's a good card. I just think it's a little bit superfluous because we already have +1 attack dice. Greyjoys already have
yeah,
Silencemen have a 7/6/5, Reapers have a 7/6/4, and Reavers have a 7/6/4. So we already have pretty good attack profiles. So I just think it's a little bit unnecessary, and the fact that it falls off and it's hard
yeah,
to trigger.
yeah.
But
My
that's
my
just my
only
opinion.
no, I agree. I see what you're saying. Like, there's all this text and stuff to get basically an extra die,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Because even if you're down a rank and you go up a rank, it's probably an extra die, right?
yeah,
So you know, and all these conditions to get the card out for that one extra die. It's a pretty bad card. It's a pretty bad card. Um, but it does stack up, right? Like because you have the pillage effect gives you an extra die. Like so, it starts to like I can see how it's like damn like when the card actually does come out, it's like shit. Like here comes a million dice at me. But um, as a card in a vacuum, looking at the card, I can see why you picked it for sure.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, one more time, I just want to reiterate, not the worst. It's my number one, but that's just because Osh is one of my favorite commanders in the game. So I had to do something that I played a lot. So
I totally get it.
not the worst game in the game, but it's still kind of
It
bad.
is your top 5, so no worries.
Yeah.